This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, Bruchim Haba and welcome everyone. Parshas Naso is one of the most neglected Parshas in the Torah because it comes right after Shavuos, and sometimes you only have a few days to prepare, sometimes even less, but it's a Parsha which is chock full of material and content, and it's actually the largest Parsha in the whole Chumash, and we encounter the inyan of Birchas Kohanim. In Parak Vav, Pasuk Chav Gimel, the Pasuk says, Daber al Aharon, speak to Aaron, v'albanav Lamar, and to his children, could we get air? Lamar saying, Koi sevarchu es b'nei Yisrael, so shall you bless b'nei Yisrael, Amar lahem, say to them. So this is the Pasuk which is the tzivoy, that the Kohanim are mevarich, the Kohanim bless Klal Yisrael. Bless the Yisraelim. Comes the Sefer Charedim. Now the Sefer Charedim was written by the Shamish in the shul of the Arizal. In the Arizal shul there was a Shamish who people just thought of as the super. When the shiur was over, he would throw out all the leftovers and he would sweep up and he would clean the floors and he would clean up after everybody, and nobody really paid too much attention to him. He was the Shamish of the shul. Until one day on Simchas Torah, where in the middle of the dancing, the Arizal takes Rabbi Glatstein and dances with him in the middle. And after the dancing, everyone came to the Arizal and they said, Rabbeinu Yitzchak, why are you dancing with the super, with the Shamish, with the sanitation guy? He said, what do you want from me? If Reb Shimon Bar Yochai himself has come down from Shemayim to dance with him, I shouldn't dance with him. And the Arizal was Megala, the greatness of Rabbi Glatstein. Rabbi Glatstein wrote something that every Jew is familiar with, and that is Yedid Nefesh. The Pismain, the Piyut, Yedid Nefesh was written by Rabbi Glatstein, and he wrote the Sefer Charedim. Sefer Charedim is a sefer on the mitzvahs, and says the Sefer Charedim an unbelievable thing. One of the 613 mitzvahs is Levarech Kohen Es Yisrael, that a Kohen blessed the Yisrael, Shenemar, Koi Sevarchu Es B'nei Yisrael, and now he says the big Chiddush. The Yisrael ha'oimdim panim keneged pnei ha'kohanim b'shtika. The Yisrael that stands face to face opposite the Kohanim, silent. In other words, if you are a Yisrael and you present yourself to stand opposite the Kohanim face to face, quietly, umechavnim libam lekabel berchasam kedvar Hashem, and you pay attention and you have kavanah to receive the blessing, heim nami meklal ha-mitzvah, the Yisraelim are also part of the mitzvah. It seems that what the Sefer Charedim is saying is that just like the Kohanim have a mitzvah saseh d'oraisa to bless the people, the Yisraelim have a mitzvah saseh d'oraisa to receive the blessing. And in fact, this is not just a minority view, but the Biur Halacha, the Chafetz Chaim himself, in his very first comment on Hilchos Nesias Kapayim, he quotes the Sefer Charedim word for word, that just like the Kohanim have a mitzvah saseh d'oraisa to bless the people, the Yisraelim have a mitzvah saseh d'oraisa to present themselves to receive the bracha. In fact, if you look in the Hagoyis Rabbi Akiva Eiger in Shulchan Aruch, at the very first comment on the Siman, in Siman Kuf Chav Ches, Rabbi Akiva Eiger also brings down this opinion of the Sefer Charedim. Now the question is, what exactly does it mean? We understand what it means. The Kohanim have a mitzvah to bless the people, but what exactly is the mitzvah of the Yisraelim? Does this really mean that a Yisrael has a mitzvah saseh d'oraisa to receive the bracha? Well, the Hafla in Masechta Ksubos and the Chav Daled Amud Beis takes this very, very literally. You know, throughout Shas, we find an idea that if a zar, if a non-kohen duchens, he's over and aseh d'oraisa. For example, in the Gemara in Ksubos and the Chav Daled, the Gemara says that if a zar duchens, he's over and aseh. And Tosfos in Masechta Shabbos on Kuf Yud Chesam and Beis wonders, what aseh is there if a zar duchens? Why is he over an aseh? What aseh is there? There's no avera for a non-kohen to duchen. Why would you say that a zar who duchens is over an aseh? Say because he made a bracha? It's not talking about the bracha. The bracha is not ma'akev. You don't have to make a bracha when you're duchen. Why would a zar, just by getting up on the podium and saying Yivarecha Hashem Yishmerecha, why would he be over naseh? So listen to what the Hafla says. The Hafla has a great chap. Says the Hafla, you know why he's over naseh? Because he's a Yisrael. And what's the job of a Yisrael? The Kohen has to stand there with his hands raised, and the job of the Yisrael is to stand facing the Kohen, preparing himself to receive the blessing. So if the Yisrael gets up on the podium, standing with the Kohanim, he's not fulfilling his mitzvah saseh d'oraisa of standing opposite the Kohen to receive the bracha. That's what it means, that if a zar duchins, he's over naseh, he's over the aseh of the Yisrael. Everybody has their part in the play. The Kohen gives the bracha, the Yisrael receives the bracha. And if Yisrael gets up and switches his part and does not allow himself to face the Kohanim and to receive the bracha, says the Hafla, he is over a mitzvah aseh d'oraisa. So the Hafla takes this very literally, that just like a Kohen has a mitzvah d'oraisa to give the bracha, the Yisrael has a mitzvah d'oraisa to receive the bracha. Others disagree with the Hafla's interpretation of this Sefer Charedim. The Yishal Sechuvas Mahari Asad in Siman Memvav, that Mahari Asad says, no way that Yisrael has a mitzvah d'oraisa to receive the bracha. I mean, that would be like saying that just like a Yavam has a mitzvah to do Yibam, the Yavama has a mitzvah d'oraisa to be Nisyabim to the Yavam. And that can't be. By the way, the Hafla says yes. The Hafla says just like the Yavam has a mitzvah saseh to do Yivam, the Yavama has a mitzvah saseh to be Nisyabim. But the Mari Asad said that can't be. And therefore he understands this concept of the Charedim a bit different. He says the mitzvah d'oraisa birchas kohanim is merely going on the kohen to give the bracha. But since an essential ingredient in him giving the bracha is he needs an audience, you need recipient of the blessing, and you need an audience to be facing you, and they need to be panim al panim, and they need to be mechavein. Therefore the Yisrael is more than just a facilitator. The Yisrael is part of the image of the mitzvah. He doesn't actually get the mitzvah. The mitzvah d'oraisa does not devolve on him. He is not the one who is mitzvah, but he becomes part of the situation. He becomes part of the scenario. Also, the Dvar Avram also learns very similar to Mari Asad, that the Yisrael is merely the facilitator. But the Dvar Avram says to say the Yisrael gets the mitzvah just like the Kohen, he says, Hagav atzmacha. How could you say such a thing? Imagine if somebody knocked on your door, he's collecting tzedakah. So do you say, I have a mitzvah to give, and the ani, he has a mitzvah to get? Maybe they think that, they take it very literally. Yoser mimash balabais oisel la'ani, ha'ani oisel balabais. It's very nice. It's a nice hagadata. But the mitzvah is going on the noisin. There's no mitzvah on the makabel. Let's say bikur choylem. Let's say you visit the sick. The choyle does not get a mitzvah of bikur choylem. The kala does not get a mitzvah of hachnas gal. Imagine a guy, he goes up to Shamayim. Rebbeinu Shalom says, sorry, dude, you have no mitzvahs. He said, yeah, I get the mitzvah of Kfuras Mesim. Yeah, because he just buried me. He couldn't have done it without me. Right? You can't bury someone unless they're dead. So somebody get a mitzvah because somebody buried them? Of course not. So the Dvar Avram says this idea of the Charedim is very hard to put your finger on. But nevertheless, to say that the Yisraelim actually get a mitzvah of Birchas Kohanim is very difficult. They're merely facilitating the mitzvah of Birchas Kohanim. But in any event, this is the comment of the Charedim, that just like the Yisrael, just like the Kohen gets a mitzvah to mevarich the the Yisraelim get a mitzvah to be makabel the bracha. Okay, so comes along the Sefer Emek Bracha in number 7. Your pages, you have to maybe go on to the next sheet. The Emek Bracha, who is a Talmud of the Brisker Rav, He wants to bring a raya to the opinion of the Sefer Charedim, that not only is there a mitzvah on the Kohanim, but there is a mitzvah on the Yisraelim as well to receive the brachos. And the Sefer Emek Bracha says the following. He discovered a comment of the Ravid, Masechta Tamid, and the Ravid says, quoting Sefer HaMiktzayos, that if somebody's wife is a nida, they cannot duchen. You hear this? Somebody's wife is a nida, they cannot duchen. Why? Says the Ravid, we're afraid he may touch something that she touched, and he's going to make it tameh. And if a kohen came into contact with a nida, then his tefillah is considered an abomination. Now, this doesn't apply anymore because tumas nida is irrelevant. We're not noyeg anymore. Hilchos tuma v'tara. But bisman shebeis hamikdash hayakayim, if one's wife was a nida, they would not be allowed to duchen. That's the first comment of the Ravid.
Who wrote the Emek Bracha?
What? The Reb Aryeh Pomeransky is the Talmud of the Brisker Rav. And he says not only that, but the kohen whose wife is a nida, einoi moitzi as Yisrael yedei chayvasan, cannot be moitzi the chiyuv of the Yisrael. And about such a kohen, the pasuk says that when he spreads out his hand to duchen, says Rebbe Shem, I will ignore him. So says the Emek Bracha, what does the Ravid mean that not only can he not duchen, but he can't be moitzi the Yisrael? He can't be moitzi the Yisrael in what? The Yisrael has no chiyuv. There is no obligation that the kohen is being moitzi the Yisrael. It must be, you see from the Ravid, that not only is there a chiyuv on the kohen to duchen, there's a chiyuv on the Yisrael to receive the duchening. And if the kohen's wife is a nida, he can't duchen, and he can't be moitzi the chiyuv of the Yisrael. So again, this is another proof to the idea of the Sefer Charedim, that not only is there a mitzvah d'oraisa on the kohen, there's a mitzvah d'oraisa on the Yisrael. Which means that it's very nice people want to take their kids in for the duchening, but if they're going to bring in their little babies and they're going to be juggling their kids and their grandchildren with lollipops and popcorn, it's very unlikely they could actually be mechavein to the bracha of the kohen. Which in case, it's maybe a nice custom, but they're being mevatel a mitzvah d'oraisa of koisavarchu es b'nei Yisrael. Now you say, come on, you don't have to have that much kavanah during duchening. Well, we all know that the reason why the Kohanim cover their hands b'zman hazeh is not really because you can't look at their hands, because they're not saying the Shema Mefarash. The reason why you can't look at their hands is because it's going to distract you from listening to the words. What kind of distraction is it when someone puts up their hand? It's not like someone putting up their hand in the middle of a shiur distracting you. Well, how is it distracting if you're looking at someone's hands? The answer is, you're supposed to be thinking about the meaning of the words. So if you're juggling your kids on your arm under the talus, and they want to rip the talus off because they can't breathe underneath, then it's very likely that's much more of a distraction than looking at the hands of the kohen. Just a ha'ara. Now, says Rav Moshe Feinstein, if you think this is a little bit of an exaggeration, let's say someone's in the middle of Kriya Shema, and the Chazan is up to, and the Shliach Tzibur is up to, Yivarechecha Hashem, the Yishmerecha. Do you stop in the middle of Kriya Shema to listen to the Berachos Kohanim? Of course you do. Of course you do. You have to stop. What about, do you answer Amen to duchening in middle of Kriya Shema? So before tonight's share, if somebody was to answer me, if you get the answer, I'll give you $100. I don't think anyone in this room would have gotten the right answer. Who would have ever chalamt? Who would have ever dreamed that you're supposed to answer Amen to Berachos Kohen in the middle of Kriya Shema? After all, you don't answer Amen to any bracha. Not even to a bracha d'oraisa. Not even to Berachos HaMazon. Not even to Berachos HaTorah. You don't answer Amen to any bracha. Not even if some Rebbe gave you a bracha, you should become a millionaire. You don't answer Amen in the middle of Kriya Shema. Not even Kaddish. You don't even answer Amen Yehei Shmei Rabbah. But, says Rav Moshe Feinstein, if you hear duchening in the middle of Kriya Shema, you answer Amen. You answer Amen to duchening in middle Krishma? Of course you do, he says. There's a mitzvah d'oraisa for the Yisrael to be mechavein to the brachas of the kohen, and to have in mind to be mekabel them, and to have in mind to receive them. Therefore, says Rav Moshe, a very big chiddush. If there's a mitzvah d'oraisa for the Yisrael to hear brachas kohanim and to present himself to the kohen, then it comes out there's only one amen you ever say that's an amen d'oraisa. And what's that? Amen to brachas kohanim. Says Rav Moshe, answering amen to brachas kohanim is a mitzvah d'oraisa, and therefore it trumps even Kriya Shema. If you're in the middle of Shema, you interrupt Shema to answer amen to brachas kohanim. What if you're in the middle of Shemoneh Esrei? Do you answer amen? No, you don't answer amen, but you stop to listen to the brachas kohanim. But says Rav Moshe, another chiddush. If, let's say, you daven along Shemoneh Esrei, and you know that by the time they get up to brachas kohanim, you're still shuckling away in Avinu Malkeinu Galei Kvod Malchuscha Aleinu, then you're not allowed to start Shemoneh Esrei. You cannot start Shemoneh Esrei unless you know for sure you will have finished by the time the Kohanim get up to duchening. Okay, you got it? So we're learning a very big chiddush. Not only is there a mitzvah for the kohen to duchen, there's a mitzvah d'oraisa for the Yisrael to participate in the duchening, to listen, which means just like you can't learn during Chazaras Hashatz, you definitely cannot learn during duchening, and you definitely cannot be distracted. You can't even be distracted in the slightest amount, even to look at something other than focus on the words, and therefore a person has to make sure that all he is doing during Brachas Kohanim is mentally preparing himself to receive the bracha and to answer Amen.
It means Hashem is honoring us more than we have to honor Hashem for Kedusha.
Whatever it is, we have a mitzvah to receive the bracha. Answering Amen to any other bracha is not a chiv d'oraisa. It's only a mitzvah d'Rabbanan. But answering Amen is part of the mitzvah of Kaisavarchu for the Yisrael. Okay. No, not Ashar Kedishana. Okay, so very important. When we say you have to answer Amen Mid'oraisa, it's only to Yivarechacha, to Yair, and to Yisa. But to the Berachas HaMitzvah, Baruch Atah Hashem, L'himar Ashar Kedishana, Tzodzu Tzivanu, L'varach Hazam Yisrael B'Yahava, that Amen is like any other Amen. It's an Amen D'Rabbanan. Okay. But during the weekday, Ashkenazim don't duchen. But if you daven in a shul by Sfardim where they duchen, then you have the same chiyuv d'oraisa to answer me. Yeah. Okay. Now, what do you tell the kohanim when they finish duchening? What do you say to the kohen? What? Yasher koyach. So the Mishnah Berurah brings down. Look at number 9. V'yachshav shehaminag loymar lekohanim b'yiridasa min haduchon Yasher, Yasher. You tell the kohen, shkoyach. Therefore, says the Mishnah Berurah, the kohen should make it his business not to come down from the duchen until after Kaddish, because if he's come down before Kaddish, everyone's going to be saying shkoyach during the Kaddish, and during Kaddish you can't talk. Of course, you can't learn. Are you allowed to think about learning? That's a big aveira. You're not allowed to think about learning during Kaddish. Make sure that avera you don't have on your cheshbon. Of all you don't want to have averas of learning, Anyway, so therefore you want to make sure that no one's giving you shkoyach during Kaddish. Now, why do you give the kohen shkoyach? Now, the first thing you have to know is there's no such word as shkoyach. So if you want to say shkoyach, it's a free country. You can say whatever you want. But what is the word? So the Matei Ephraim brings down two opinions. And number 10, Matei Ephraim, surprisingly, he says, after the Rosh Hashanah davening, you finish Adonai Olam, and then everyone should go over to the Baal Musaf, and the Baal Makri, and the Tokei. Everyone should say Shalom, and you say Asher Koyach. There was once a guy, every time I gave a shiur, he said Asher Koyach. I don't know what he's talking about. I don't know what planet he came from. But I thought maybe he didn't know. But it turns out I was the one who didn't know. Says the Matei Ephraim, it's Asher Koyach. Asher is from the Pasuk. Ishru Chametz. Asher means your Koyach should be strong. V'yesh oimrim Yasher Koyach. Yasher Koyach means third person. Like, you don't say you to your Rebbe. You say the Rebbe. Your father, you don't say the father. We once saw in the Chassam Sofer, you're not supposed to say to your father, the father. You're supposed to speak to the father directly. Only Goyim speak to the father, third person. But that's for a different time. But Ye'asher Koyach means let his Koyach be made strong, third person. But either way, the purpose is, says Amatei Ephraim, that we're saying to the person, you just did this mitzvah, and we hope that you have increased strength to be able to do many other mitzvahs. Okay. Now, very interestingly, in Eretz Yisrael, they don't say Yasher Koyach to the Kohanim. Why not? Very mysterious. In Eretz Yisrael, they don't give the Kohanim shkoyach, maybe because they do it every day. By the Sfardim, they say shkoyach to the Kohen? Yeah? What?
In Israel too, sometimes. In Israel.
No, on my sheet it says they don't. What? With the Sfardim, they do say shkoyach?
No.
Chazak Baruch. And what does the Kohen say back? Oh, you're in big trouble. Okay, good. Okay, we're going to see about that. But the Kohanim, in Eretz Yisrael, it says on my sheet over here that they don't give the Kohen shkoyach. Why not? So it's brought down in a Sefer, Makar HaBracha, because if you look at the very end of the Beis Yosef's comments on Birchas Kohanim, the Beis Yosef says like this. Look at number 12. Yasher koichacham shel bnei Eretz Yisrael, shkoyach to the people in Eretz Yisrael, v'chol malchus Mitzrayim, shenoisim kapeim b'chol yom, they duchen every day. So it's brought down, that's why we don't give shkoyach to the Kohen. Why? Because the Beis Yosef already gave them shkoyach. Right? The Beis Yosef ends off Hilchos Birchas Kohanim, shkoyach to the Kohanim, so he already gave them a shkoyach. We have nothing to add to the bracha of the Beis Yosef. But the Beis Yosef we know is Mara the Asra of the Eretz Yisrael. But so he's giving shkoyach to the Kohanim in Eretz Yisrael. But the Kohanim in America, we have to give shkoyach to. Okay. But here's the problem. Look at number 13. It's the Gemara in Masechta Rosh Hashanah, Daf Chav Ches. The Gemara says, let's say a Kohen, he's up on the duchen and he's feeling really good, he's on a roll. Yivarechicha Yair Yisa. And he says, you know what? I see a guy over there, he needs parnasa. So he says, Yivarech Yiten Hashem Lecha Parnasa Berevach. And you see someone over there, that guy, V'yiten Lecha Sham Refu Shalema. Could the Kohen start shouting out brachos? No, Kohen who does that, he's over an Isser Dairaisa of Baal Tosef. Right? Minayin lekoin sha'oil duchen sh'layim marhov and asnali Torah rishus levarach Israel oisef bracha achas mishali. How do you know the Kohen cannot give a bracha more than the three? Kagayin Hashem lekei avoisechem yosef aleichem Talmud loymar loisosif al adavar. So Gemara says, what do you mean? But he already finished doing the mitzvah. Says the Gemara, no, the mitzvah is never over, because if another kehila comes in afterwards, then he'll give another bracha to the kehila. But says, so therefore the Gemara comes out that a kohen may not add on any brachos to the Yivarechecha Yair and Yisa. So here's the $1 million question: whether you say shkoyach to the kohen, or if you're of Sephardic origin and you say Chazaku Baruch, what do the kohen say back? Well, we know. Take a look in number 14. It says the Aruch HaShulchan at the end of the piece. We tell the kohen Yasher Koichachem. And what does the Kohen say back? Baruch Tiyeh. The Kohen was just over an Isser Dairaisa Baal Tosef. The Kohen just violated a mitzvah Sasei Dairaisa. He's adding more brachos. The Torah says you can only say Yivarechecha, Yair, and Yisa. And the Kohen is throwing a freebie. He's saying Baruch Tiyeh. Hey Kohen, hey pal. That's not, it doesn't say that in this week's Parsha. It says Yivarechecha, says Yair, and says Yisa. You want to say Baruch Tiyeh? You're over and I say Dairaisa. Should have stayed home today.
But you said before that you should wait until after the Kohanim.
Good.
After the Kohanim
Good.
come down, they're finished.
But the Gemara says, the Gemara had a question. Gemara asked, why is he over Baal Tosef if he adds a bracha, but he already finished? Says the Gemara, no, the whole day is the Zman for Birchas Kohanim, because if a Kehila comes in, even an hour later, he'll give another bracha. So the Gemara says, Kol Yoima Zimnehu. So since Kol Yom is Zimnehu, it would seem that a Kohen who responds Baruch Tiyeh is over in Aseh Darais, and even more, so you say he won't say Baruch Tiyeh. He'll say, right back at you. I don't know, we'll come up with a lashon for the Kohen to say. He'll say, Koichachem Yiyasha, right? But, any Kohanim over here? We have one over there. Anybody else? We have two. You're not going to want to admit you're a Kohen today. But anybody else? That's it? Just two. Usually we have like 10. Okay, what are we going to do? So, does anybody know, what do the Yisraelim say when Birchas Kayanim is over? The Yisraelim say, Adir ba'amorim, shoichein begvura, ata shalom, shimcha shalom, yiratzon, right? You know that? It's in the Siddur. You need to say that. When the Birchas Kayanim is over, the Yisraelim say that. But what do the Kohanim say? There's a nusach for the Kohanim number 15. They say, Ribono shel olam, asinu ma shegazarta aleinu. We did what you decreed. Af ata, so to you, asei imanu kama sheftachthanu. Please do what you promised, and that is hashkifa me'ayin kachon hashemayim uvarech esamcha yisrael. Give Klal Yisrael a bracha. So here it is. Not only so, if it's one thing, the Kohen, we will tell him, don't say Baruch Tiyeh. But in his Siddur, it says, he has to add a bracha of Hashkifa Mimayin Kachra Min HaShamayim Uvarech Esamcha Yisrael. So this is a problem. By the way, this is a Beferish Gemara that he needs to say. It's a Gemara in Soita, look at number 16. The Gemara in Soita says, V'chi mahader ape mitzibura may amar. What does the Kohen say after he turns around, after he finishes Berachas Kohanim? So the Gemara says that Rav Chisda took Rav Ukva and he darshaned that the Kohanim say, Ribono shel olam, we did what you decreed, now you do, and gaze down from heaven and bless the people. And therefore asks Reb Tzvi Pesach Frank, one of the Koinei Hadar of the 20th century, if you look through the Chuvas of Rav Yosef, there are only two people, I believe, that he calls Moifes Hadar, and one of them is Reb Tzvi Pesach Frank. If I'm not mistaken, Reb Tzvi Pesach Frank had a chavrusa. His name was Rabbi Chiel Michal Tukachinsky, the author of the Gesher HaChaim, the author of Ir HaKodesh VeHaMikdash. And they had a practice that they would learn a Masechta, and then they would chazer it together another 89 times. So they would not go into a new Masechta until they learned the first Masechta 90 times. Right? So next time you go to a Shiur, I heard that from the rabbi 3 years ago. Don't complain until you hear 90 times, okay? And by the way, there are no repeats over here, so don't worry. At least not Wednesday night. Okay. And one time he was learning Masechta Yevamos with Rabbi Chiel Michal, and they got to Daf Pei Gimel in Masechta Yevamos, where the Masechta Yevamos starts a new inyan, and Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank saying, look, I know I learned it 90 times, and I'm really not ready to go weiter. I feel I need at least another 30 times. And Rabbi Chiel Michal said, I can't do it 30 more times. And they split up. Rabbi Tzvi Pesach did another 30 times, and Rabbi Chiel Michal finished the Masechta. So the Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank wrote Shaus Teshuvas Har Tzvi. In fact, I heard from one of my Rabbeim who was close to the family that during one of the wars in Eretz Yisrael, Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank was locked up in an attic with merely one pencil and paper. And he kept on writing and 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 writing until the pencil was finished, and then that was the end of the Sefer. And Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank says, in his opinion, this is a problem to reckon with. How could a Kohen say Baruch Tiyeh? How could the Kohen say the Ribono shel olam? Well, he says like this, regarding the Ribono shel olam, it's not so bad. Why? Why isn't it? Because they're saying the Ribono shel olam, they're not facing the people when they say Ribono shel olam. They're saying the Ribono shel olam, right? Rav Ezra, right? After they turn around, after they say Shalom, they turn around, and then they say the Ribono shel olam the other way. So it's clear that it's not part of the brachos that they just said. It's clear that it's a separate inyan. In fact, one of the achronim on the Gemara in Soita points out that's why the Gemara says that the Kohanim only say the Ribono shel olam once they turn the other way. But that's not going to help us with the Baruch Tiyeh. Because imagine if you give a Kohen Shkoyach, he doesn't turn the other way and say Baruch Tiyeh. He's saying Baruch Tiyeh to you. So the Baruch Tiyeh is going to be a big problem. So comes Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, and he tells us a very interesting chidush, and that is the following. Says Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, the Noid Yehuda was asked the following question: if you have a kohen whose hands tremble, and if his hands tremble, he can't duchen, it's going to be too distracting. Okay, it's going to be too distracting. He's under the talus; it's too distracting. So when you have a kid whining, you got to take him out. Otherwise, you're being mavatel the whole tzibur for being mechavein to berachos kohanim. But the question is he allowed to duchen? Is he allowed to duchen? So says Naidi Yehuda, he can't duchen. He can't duchen. Why not? Because if you look in the Rambam says number 19, Hilchos Tefillah, Perek Yadad, Halach Yud Aleph, Birchas Kohanim must be said in Lashon HaKodesh, like it says Koi Sevarchu. Birchas Kohanim must be said Be'amida, like it says Koi Sevarchu. Birchas Kohanim must be said with outstretched arms. It must be said panim keneged panim. It must be said out loud. Says the Noid Yehuda, the Rambam is including in one category many halachas. You have to say it standing, you have to say it with outstretched hands, and you have to say it face to face. Says the Noid Yehuda, if we know standing is ma'akev, if a kohen, let's say a kohen can't stand up, can't duchen, but he wants to duchen, unfortunately he's not able to. It's ma'akev. Amida is ma'akev. A kohen must stand for duchening, cannot lean on anything. The same way a kohen must stand, a kohen must have outstretched hands. And if he doesn't have outstretched hands, he can't duchen either. And therefore, if his hands are shaking, says the Noid Yehuda, he cannot duchen. Says the Har Tzvi, you learn from this Noid Yehuda that all of these halachas of the Rambam all fall under one category. They are all ma'akev. They are all absolutely necessary. The kohen must stand. The kohen must stretch out his arms. The kohen must do it face to face. And if any of these ingredients are missing, he's not mekayim the mitzvah. So therefore, it says Rabbi Tzvi Pesach Frank, it's very logical that if the kohen adds on to the blessings he said, but he doesn't do it with outstretched arms, or he doesn't do it face to face, he's not over Baal Tosef. Because Baal Tosef is only if you're adding on the same way you did the rest of the mitzvah. So if you were to tell somebody, Baruch Tiyah, but your hands are not outstretched, or you're not facing them, or you're saying the Rebbeinu Shalom facing the other way, it's not only because it's like a hefsek from the first three brachos that you did earlier. It's more than that. The din of Baal Tosef only applies if it's done in a way where you can be mekayim the mitzvah. But since Amida is ma'akev, and so too panim al panim is ma'akev, and so too prisas kapayim is ma'akev. Therefore, if you give an extra bracha without any of these ingredients, you're not over Baal Tosef. And then the Har Tzvi says an even bigger chiddush. He says the opinion of the Shulchan Aruch Harav happens to be, look at number 21. Shulchan Aruch Harav is also bothered by the question, how could Kohanim say Ribono Shel Olam? And the Shulchan Aruch Harav says in parentheses, because they're not doing it with outstretched hands. And since they're not doing it with outstretched hands, there's no Baal Tosef, because outstretched hands is an important ingredient. Now, very interesting, because the Shulchan Aruch Harav's personal opinion in number 23 is panim el panim is not ma'akev. So panim el panim is not ma'akev. Shulchan Aruch Harav holds that a kohen doesn't have to do it face to face. Even if it's not face to face, you're still yotzei the mitzvah. So how could the Shulchan Aruch Harav say that there's no problem of saying the Ribono Shel Olam? Because he says two reasons. Either because it's not with outstretched hands, or because it's not face to face, but according to Shulchan Aruch Harav, face to face is not ma'akev. Oh, you see a big chiddush from the Shulchan Aruch Harav. Even if you just give an extra bracha, but you're missing an ingredient that would make it more lechatchila, it's not Baal Tosef. Baal Tosef is only if you add a bracha in the ideal way. But if your added bracha is missing even an ingredient with it, which is not ma'akev, you're not over Baal Tosef. However, Says Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, it's not so simple. It's not so simple. Because if you look at number 24, the Rambam says that the Kohen may not add any blessings. He can't do it. You should also make a lot of money this year. He can't do it b'kol ram, and he can't do it quietly. He also can't say, I hope you get home safely after shul today. I hope you stay He can't whisper an added bracha. Says the Chafetz Chaim, why would the Rambam say that a Kohen can't whisper another bracha? Everybody knows that an essential ingredient in Birchas Kohanim is Amar Lahem Kol Ram. That if a Kohen doesn't have a loud voice, he's not Yotzei Birchas Kohanim. It's Ma'akev. The Kohen has a very low voice, and you can't hear him. He's not Yotzei the mitzvah. Everybody agrees that. That's a drasha. Everyone agrees it's ma'akev. So if everyone agrees it's an essential ingredient, why would the Rambam say that if the Kohen whispers an added bracha, you're over Baal Tosef? Says the Chafetz Chaim in the Bir Halacha number 25, you see from the Rambam not like the Shulchan Aruch Harav. Shulchan Aruch Harav holds that it's not even Baal Tosef if you're missing an ingredient which is only l'chadchila. For example, panim al panim. The Shulchan Aruch Harav says if you give a bracha that's not panim al panim, it's not Baal Tosef. The Rambam holds, even if you're missing an ingredient which is ma'akev b'di'evet, it is Baal Tosef, because the Rambam says you can't even whisper an added bracha. Says the Bir Halacha, it comes out that if a Kohen, after the duchening, would shout out a bracha, hey you in the back, I hope you could come to the Shiur next Wednesday night also, then, even if your hands are not outstretched, and even if you're turned the other way, you're over Baal Tosef, according to the Rambam, says the Chafetz Chaim. And therefore, says the Chafetz Chaim, you should be very careful, Kohanim should be very careful about not adding blessings, even quietly, even without their hands outstretched, even not face to face. So how can the Kohanim say Ribono Shel Olam? Says the Tzvi Pesach Franco, the only reason is, because when they say the Ribono Shel Olam, they're not giving the bracha Yisrael, they're asking the Ribono Shel Olam to give the bracha. It's a tefillah. But says the Har Tzvi, halacha l'maisa, a Kohen cannot say Baruch Tia to the Yisrael. If he does, it's very likely he's over an Isser Dairaisa of Baal Tosef.
So you can't say that all day?
He can say Baruch Tia.
All day?
All day? Not in the context of the 3 brachos that he just gave. If, let's say, later on that day he does Hagba, and someone gives him a shkoyach, could he say Baruch Tia? Yeah, I think so. But not in the context of the 3 brachos. Now, this is your homework for tonight. Tonight's going to be a little bit of a shorter shiur. Wasn't feeling well today. But I'm going to give you your homework. Many years ago, somebody told me, well, if it comes out that the Kohen can, so bottom line is, now I want to tell you something. The Aruch HaShulchan does say the minhag is for Kohanim to say Baruch Tia, but the Har Tzvi says based on the Bir Halacha, a Kohen should not say Baruch Tia. So what should the Kohen say? The Kohen should say, Es gesund tehet, b'tei avon, enjoy the meal. Now we're on. Now, so it's brought down, look at number 27. What the Kohen should say back is, you tell them, Yiyasher koichachem, they should say, koichachem yiyasher. So I was thinking, that doesn't make any sense. You give Yasher koich to someone who did a mitzvah. But if someone tells you Yasher koich, you say, Baruch Tia. What kind of comment is that? Koichachem yiyasher. But according to the beginning of the shiur, it makes a lot of sense. Because according to the Sefer Charedim, not only is there a mitzvah for the Kohanim to be Mevarech the Yisrael, it's a mitzvah of the Yisrael to Makabel the Kohen's bracha. So you tell the Kohen, Yasher Koichachem, and he says right back at you, I couldn't have done it without you. We're on equal playing fields. We both have the same mitzvah of Koisavarchu. Or he brings down that you could say, Toda Rabbah, or thank you, or something of that sort. But somebody told me, an Adam Chashuv told me, that many years ago he saw in a tshuva and I was not able to find it, so this is your homework for tonight. That if it comes out according to the Har Tzvi, that the Kohen can say Baruch Tia, then there would be an Isser Dairaisa to say Shakoach to the Kohen. Lifnei Iver lo sitein michshel. Now the Mishnah Berurah obviously doesn't hold it. The Mishnah Berurah brings down the minhag of saying Shakoach to the Kohen. And but I'm searching high and low. I think it's in the Tshuvas of Rabbi Yankov Gesundheit, the Shas Tshuvas Tiferes Yaakov, but I couldn't find it. So if anybody is able to find that Tshuva, I'll be very grateful to you. But bottom line is, it's something for a Kohen to think about, that first of all, when they say the Ribbono Shel Olam, they should be mechavein, that they are not giving the bracha to the Yisrael. This is a tefillah that the Ribbono Shel Olam should be Mevarech Yisrael. Otherwise, it might be a problem about Tosef according to the Shita of the Rambam. And perhaps it's better to avoid saying Baruch Tia, because otherwise that would be a problem about Tosef. And I wish you all a good night, and Yasher Koichacha.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.